Dorit Kemsley is putting it on all the table. Since entering the Bravoverse in 2016, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills cast member has provided candid glimpses into her life. We've seen her navigate everything from friendship rifts and reconciliations to big business ventures and PTSD struggles to motherhood and a recent marital split. It's been quite a journey, to say the least, but according to Dorit, there's much, much more to her story. Dorit Kemsley explains why she decided to share her deeply personal story. The Beverly Hills wife will offer an intimate look at her life in the upcoming memoir, Unburdened, Moving On, Letting Go, and Putting It All on the Table. According to a press release first shared by Briefing on Bravo, the book will tell a glamorous and deeply personal story, a story of transformation, resilience, and the unshakable power of self-love. It's unclear what subjects will be addressed in the memoir, but fans can expect to get more insight into Dorit's role as a mother, a survivor, a dreamer, and a woman reclaiming her voice. For years, people have seen glimpses of my life, but this book is the full story, Dorit said. The beauty, the heartbreak, the fear, the fight, and the strength it took to become the woman I am today. I am writing this book not just to look back, but to move forward with determination, grace, and honesty. When will Dorit Kemsley's memoir be released? Unburdened will be released through Podium Entertainment, a full-service publishing house best known for sci-fi and contemporary romance titles. Unburdened's exact release date has yet to be announced, but according to Podium's website, the book is set to hit shelves in spring 2026. Dorit Kemsley files for divorce from Paul P.K. Kemsley. The announcement came more than a year after Dorit and Paul P.K. Kemsley confirmed their separation. The estranged couple shared the news in a joint Instagram statement, insisting they still had love for one another and the family they built. "We as a couple have been subject to a lot of speculation about our marriage," they wrote in the since-deleted post. "We have had our struggles over the last few years and continue to work through them as two people who love each other and share two amazing children, son, Jagger, and daughter, Phoenix. To safeguard our deep friendship and maintain a harmonious environment for our children, we have made the mutual and difficult decision to take some time apart and reevaluate our relationship while we prioritize our children," the statement continued. "We appreciate your love and support while we continue to do the work necessary throughout this journey. With love, Dorit and PK." Although she had some hesitation about pursuing legal separation, the Beverly Hills mom filed for divorce in April 2025, citing irreconcilable differences. The fountain in the backyard gurgled a placid, indifferent tune, its ceramic cherubs forever frozen in mid-pour. Dorit sat on the edge of a chaise lounge, a leather-bound journal open on her lap. The embossed title, Unburdened, shimmered faintly in the late afternoon sun. It was the same title Podium Entertainment had settled on, a word that felt both audacious and terrifyingly honest. She was meant to be writing, but her pen hovered, a featherweight over the stark white page. For years, she had given the world glimpses. A snippet of a conversation here, a tearful confession there, all carefully framed and edited for an audience of millions. They had seen the designer labels, the opulent parties, the perfectly coiffed hair. They had seen the fight, the drama, the triumphant returns. But they had never seen this, the quiet, gnawing silence of a house that was no longer a home, the ache that lived behind her smile, the sheer weight of a story she had been carrying alone. The first page she had written was a simple sentence, "I am a survivor." It felt like a lie and a truth all at once. Survival, to the public, meant overcoming a home invasion, a traumatic event she had relived countless times on screen and in therapy. But the word meant so much more to her now. It was surviving a marriage that had slowly, imperceptibly, become a friendship. It was surviving the public gaze, the scrutiny, the relentless speculation. It was surviving the person she had become and finding the courage to become someone new. A memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome, of a press junket years ago. A young, eager reporter had asked her, "What's the secret to your fabulous life?" Dorit had laughed, a tinkling sound that had been as much a part of her brand as her impeccable style. "The secret," she had said, "is putting it on all the table." She had meant it then, but what a naive, glorious lie it had been. She had put on the table what was palatable, what was entertaining, what was useful. She had kept the real, raw parts of herself hidden, polished to a perfect sheen, and stowed away in a secret compartment. The divorce papers had arrived 2 months ago, a sterile, legalistic monument to a love that had once been everything. PK had been a constant, a partner in crime, a co-conspirator in the grand, absurd adventure of their lives. The joint statement they had released was a masterpiece of diplomacy. "We have had our struggles over the last few years. We have made the mutual and difficult decision to take some time apart." It was the truth, but it was a truth so sanitized it barely felt like their own. The struggles were 1,000 small cuts, not one great wound. The time apart had started long before the papers. It had been in the silences over dinner, the separate lives they led, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. She remembered the day she had finally picked up the phone and told her lawyer to move forward. The decision had been agonizing. It felt like admitting defeat, like tearing a page out of a book she had spent a lifetime writing. But it was also an act of self-preservation, reclaiming her voice, the press release had called it. The words felt too grand, too dramatic for the quiet sorrow of a woman signing a document. Yet, as the ink dried, a strange lightness had settled over her. The weight wasn't gone, but it had shifted. She was no longer carrying the burden of a failing relationship on her own. It was a shared legal reality, and in that, there was a strange kind of freedom. The memoir wasn't just about the divorce, though it was a key part of the narrative. It was about all of it. The early days of her career, the audacious fashion ventures that had either soared to glorious heights or crashed in spectacular public flames. It was about motherhood, the fierce, protective love for Jagger and Phoenix that was the single most constant and unwavering force in her life. It was about the PTSD from the home invasion, a shadow that had followed her, a constant, low-level hum of anxiety she had to learn to live with. It was the full story, the beautiful mess of a life lived in the spotlight. She dipped the pen into the inkwell, the action a deliberate, almost ceremonial gesture. She decided to start not with the end, but with the beginning of the end. The night she and PK had sat in their cavernous living room, the city lights winking outside like distant, disapproving eyes. "Dorit," PK had said, his voice soft, almost a whisper. "This isn't working, is it?" She hadn't answered right away. She had simply looked at him, at the man she had built a life with, and saw the same exhaustion in his eyes that she felt in her soul. He wasn't the man she had married, and she wasn't the woman he had fallen in love with. They were two different people, a decade later, with a mountain of shared history and a chasm of unshared futures. "No," she had finally said. "No, it isn't." The word had hung in the air, a final, unchangeable declaration. It wasn't a fight. There were no raised voices, no slammed doors. It was just an acknowledgement of a slow, painful decay, a mutual, difficult decision. The words from the joint statement were born in that moment, in the quiet admission that sometimes love just wasn't enough to hold the pieces together. As she wrote, the memories flowed, unfiltered and raw. The book was becoming an exorcism, a way of looking at her own life, not through the lens of a camera, but through the clear, unblinking eyes of her own experience. She wrote about the shame of admitting her struggles, the pressure to maintain a perfect image, the crippling fear that had consumed her after the burglary. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She was simply telling her story. She wrote of a conversation with her children, a difficult, tear-filled discussion where they asked why Daddy wasn't living at home anymore. She told them they would always be a family, just a different kind of family. She told them that their parents' love for them was the one thing that would never change. She had seen the confusion and hurt in their eyes, and it had broken her heart into a million pieces. This, she thought, was the part of her story the world would never see on television. The real, unscripted moments of pain and courage that made a life. Hours passed. The sun set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the pool. The cherubs in the fountain were now just dark silhouettes. She had filled pages not with glamorous platitudes, but with a woman's journey. She wrote out the fear, the fight, and the strength. The strength to let go of the life she thought she was supposed to have. The strength to admit that she was not okay, and that was okay. The strength to be unburdened. When she finally closed the journal, her hand was cramped and her mind was clear. She felt a profound sense of peace. The book wasn't just a memoir, it was a testament. It was her voice, reclaimed from the noise and the spectacle of the public eye. It was her story, told not for an audience, but for herself.